you're an executive life and leadership coach, and the work that you do with Think Development is related to career. So sometimes people come to you with a career clarity topic, but we might see very quickly that that topic blends into much larger topics of life and relationship and health. Why do you think that that happens for people, where it just kind of starts to expand into larger territory?
I think it's because of how much time we spend at work. When you really think about it, whether you're part-time and spending, 20 hours a week at work, or, full-time plus, and you're really grinding, at 80, sometimes unfortunately, like over 80 hours a week in the case of some of my clients. It's a lot of what makes up your day, your week, your month, and therefore your year and your life, So how could it not impact everything else that you're doing? Every hour that you spend working on something career related is a trade-off of an hour of something else you're not doing. So it just so naturally impacts your relationships, your health and wellness, the fun you're having outside of work. It's just everything just ends up being a set of trade-offs. So to the extent, again, that you can be clear on why you're making the trade-offs you're making, I think, the more clarity you have on your career path as well, because for sure I've picked these set of things because of XYZ reason, and I've said no to the other set of options for whatever other reason. So they just can't help but be related.
I'm curious, do you find that your clients are somewhat surprised or somewhat hesitant to sometimes start to bridge into larger territory when they're like, no, I just came for this, one specific, career related topic?
I think unfortunately people have trouble giving themselves the permission to hire a coach for the things outside of career. So to be honest, what I most often observe is a willingness to invest in coaching because it has something to do with my career, which is directly linked to how I make money. But the truth is that the person is dealing with something, that is much larger than just what falls into the quote unquote career bucket. So as soon as we open the door, often it's like sometimes as soon as the first session, but definitely within the first, 2 or 3 sessions, that this other elephant in the room, needs to be addressed for us to move forward. And I see the client actually giving themselves the permission to go to these other places because they realize the value of the process of coaching and how helpful it could be on any topic.
I love how you described that. And I think a lot about that sense of self awareness and internal clarity. And it's so easy for us to just kind of walk through life and not do that work and follow the easy path or the known path or the consistent path and lose sight of some of those deep pieces. But it feels like when people take the moment to really pause and look at it, really is like opening a box that you then can't close again. How do you see that for their clients, like for your clients, once they do the work and they have a deeper sense of this self-awareness and clarity? What does it do for them going forward, and how it might kind of shift their entire approach or trajectory or thoughts about life?
Yeah, what I often see it as is a real experience of the light bulb going off, and what was once dark and hazy and unclear is just all of a sudden bright, and well lit, and is much easier to, move forward and walk through because, now this person can see where they're going, they can see the path. And to your point, then you can't unsee it. And I think the other thing that helps the person move forward is the process also starts to really shed light on the cost of not moving forward, of staying the same. or doing or continuing to follow what other people told them they should be doing, or continuing to do what feels quote unquote safe, they start to realize it's not safe at all. It's actually very dangerous to keep doing this thing that's not getting them the results they want or the fulfillment that they're looking for. So yeah, it gets to a point where they can't help but want to approach things differently, whether that be a mindset or a set of actions.
I know one of my clients I was talking to recently, we were doing work together, and I asked her what her takeaway at the end of the session was, and she was like, "My takeaway is that you just really cannot do this work on your own." Right? And so there's things that people can do on their own. I'd love to talk about that in a minute. But also there might be a point where it's hard to gain clarity from an external perspective on your own. It's just not possible. And so how do you think about that in your work? Like being the person who kind of provides that external perspective or helps, shine the light just where it needs a little bit of focus.
What keeps people stuck and unable to see the path forward are a set of thoughts or a pattern of thinking, that has really taken root and taken hold and feels really true, or feels just insurmountable. So to the person experiencing that pattern or that thought, it's literally so internalized that it's not even that person might not even be aware that this is a truth that I've come to just follow blindly, right? So it literally takes bringing in an external party who can then ask, well, wait a minute, how true is that? Or what makes you say that? Or I'm hearing an assumption here. What might you be assuming to be true? And then as soon as that dialogue happens, that light bulb goes off, or that different perspective starts to form. Or just a whole another set of opportunities that weren't even in the consideration set just suddenly start to appear. So it just is literally work that can't be done, alone, because the awareness can't be had on your own.
Do you have any examples of fun moments, fun, I guess is the word I'm going to put on it, but moments where those light bulbs have gone off, or you might have tested an assumption, or challenged somebody to think differently?
Yeah, I'll give an example from a client I spoke to this morning. So this one's really fresh. Someone who is a really successful entrepreneur who exited successfully from his business, and is in, for the first time, a state of, wait, I don't have to rush to do 3 million things all in a day, and it's really throwing him for a loop. It's such a change in pace. And it's an opportunity for him to finally focus on the things that he feels he's neglected in terms of his family and relationships. But it's just that nature of constantly leaning in and constantly going has become so internalized. It feels counterintuitive, but it's actually harder for him to now relax and not be tempted by the set of opportunities that are now just coming to him, because everyone wants to align with someone who successfully exited a company, right? So everyone wants a piece of him, and he's like, all I have to do is just say no, and really stay focused on family. But I just need to stop being distracted. And so I asked him, like, what do you need to do to stop being distracted then? And he realized that what makes it so tempting, what makes it distracting in the first place, is still this idea of, well, what if the opportunities stop coming? It's still like this false sense of a limited set of opportunities or a time limit that is not actually there. So as soon as we started talking, and I also asked him, like, well, what would it take for you to really regret? Like, what would be an opportunity that you would really feel regret that you missed? He was like, "That's a really good question. Like, I don't even know. Like, if I miss the opportunity, like, so what? I'm set now." So he can't even define what it would have to be for him to say, "Oh shucks, I really missed that one." So yeah, that's an example from today.
Hmm, that's a good example. Yeah, so good coaching questions in there for sure. I was like, ooh, that was a good question as well. It's funny too. I think what I love about that example also is that there's this funny thing that happens in coaching, and I think it often happens with a really good coach, where somebody asks you a question that allows you to tap into an answer, and you kind of the question, like, it feels like a good question, but it is such a good question that allows you to kind of have this realization that feels like, oh well, I knew that already. Like, oh well, I already had the answer. Or oh well, all I needed was just that one question. I could have come up with that question on my own. And it's funny, so you might come out of a good coaching relationship feeling like, oh well, I already knew all that, I already had all the answers. And it's like, well, yeah, you did. That's part of what coaching is all about, is helping you uncover the things that are really there to begin with, but you actually couldn't get there on your own because you didn't know that question. You needed the outside person to kind of bring it up for you, and to see it in a different light.
100%.
We've talked a lot about the value of coaching, and that it is difficult to kind of do some of this work without an outside perspective. However, we also believe that people are, naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and there is a good amount of work that you can do on your own. If somebody isn't quite ready to work with a coach for whatever reason, but they want to start doing some of this work on their own, what are a few tangible tips or actions that they could do to start to gain clarity and sort through the mess?
Yeah, so this might be an unexpected answer, but if there was only one thing, if I could pick only one thing for this person to do, it would be to meditate, actually. I know still that that's like kind of a loaded concept for some folks. I certainly thought it was until I started doing it myself. I finally got over the hump when someone explained to me that meditation is not about clearing your thoughts, but about really observing them and just observing what comes up. Because I was always like, it's impossible for me to clear my thoughts. Why would I sit there and try to do that? Right. So I think it's one of the only ways that you yourself can come into the kind of awareness that allows you to notice, oh, well, I keep having this recurring thought come up. Or, now that I keep seeing that thought, I'm wondering, like, why does it have such a hold? And is it true? I think it's the only other way that you yourself can start to observe, become aware, and start to question what those thoughts and the extent to which they're true, and that the extent to which you need to believe them. So meditation is really a tool that allows you to create that kind of distance from the patterns and the habitual thinking that might have taken hold. So if I could only pick one, that would be it. If the person says, no, I'm definitely not going to meditate, though, I would say journaling is another really great self-awareness tool. So, if a person can develop their own practice, whatever works for them, whether it's first thing in the morning or before they go to sleep at night or both, just making that dedicated time to stop and observe what is happening on the inside.
I like the suggestion, and I also like that you mentioned that, like, it can be hard for people, and you might have to get over the hump. Have you seen ways to help people get into meditation? I know there's a lot of apps, and there's a lot of, different ways to go about practicing that might help someone start to inch towards it and do just a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, I've had several clients ask me, who have wanted to do it, who have asked me, well, how can I start to really make this a practice? And I encourage folks to give it a try for as little as like 1 to 3 minutes a day. And as you mentioned, there are so many apps out there that help you stay accountable to that, that have trackers, habit trackers and built into the meditation app itself, or apps that are separately just habit tracking, where you can do something so short and see over time, wow, I just strung together a whole month where I just took a minute to pause. So starting small is really what I would suggest, and then it starts to really take hold, because even as something as little as 5 minutes or less a day will start to make an impact, and then usually starts to pique someone's curiosity and get them grabbing on to 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and a lot can be established with that kind of practice.
Yeah, and I think if you sit down and try to just sit for even 30 seconds or 60 seconds, you realize really quickly how long of a period of time that is, right? So,
Yeah.
like you even just mentioned there for 5 minutes a day, and I think if even that feels like too much, start with whatever the smallest amount is, whether it's 10 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds, but it does add up and it kind of builds that momentum, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And even making the observation that, wow, I just set my timer for 30 seconds and that felt like a really long time. Well, that's a great observation. What happened there? What did you experience? What is it about the 30 seconds that felt uncomfortable? Like, that's already awareness raising.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious how I know you have a really strong meditation practice, and there were periods of time where you were meditating for many, many hours in a day, and then you had a baby and it went down. And what does your meditation practice look like these days?
Well, it's looking like how it started, which is actually what puts me right back in touch with the advice I dish out, right? Which is just do a minute, like some days that's all I get now, with a young daughter who's 17 months old and just running around all the time, and demanding so much attention outside of my coaching practice. So just being trusting, that even a minute is doing something, um, is where I'm at today, and what I do, I don't happen to use an app right now. It really is just about setting the timer on my phone and just trying to note that, okay, I did it, as long as I did a minute a day, I'm maintaining something here.
Well, I have maybe just one or two more questions for you. So,
Sure.
if a dream client were to land on your doorstep, as soon as we hang up this Zoom call, what kind of topics would they be bringing to the table that would just light you up to work on right now?
I mean, I'll start by saying that for me, a dream client is really defined by a person who is willing to trust the process. That's always a dream for me. Then it's like, oh, great. Let's let this rip, like now. And now we just get to flow into this. You trust that this is going to work, and let's just see what comes up, and so when a person is open to that exploration, that's who gets the most out of coaching, and that is just a dream for me to work with. And the topics that light me up really, really truly are whatever comes up for this person. And I particularly feel really honored is the word that comes up for me when a person feels comfortable enough to bring me into something that they've been afraid to address so far, where I can see they are really mustering up the courage to finally face this thing. And the fact that I can participate in that and can have something to do with making that big, scary thing, go from being something really dark to something really light and clear. is just that's what I live for. That's what I do this for.
I love it. I know at some point you told me related to your coaching that like the messier it is, the more you like it. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, 100%. Again, because usually it's like when someone comes to me with like, I don't even know how to define the problem, like I don't even, I'm like, great, okay, but you're here, like that didn't scare you. You still showed up and you're really willing to explore. So like, let's roll our sleeves up and like see what happens here.
As we close out this conversation, what is something that's come up for you, a takeaway you want to take away from this conversation?
Great question. Get a little coaching today, Jenny. To be really honest with you, I'm feeling really energized. You really helped me ground myself in why I do this. So I think through the questions you asked, Jenny, I've also been brought back in touch, with my whole self and what really makes me feel whole and like I'm showing up, with all my power. And it's just great to be in touch with that and to know, once again through this conversation, like I'm doing what I was meant to do.